One of the benefits from reading the Passion as we do in sort of this dialogue format is it gives the chance to be able to identify with certain characters in a more realistic way. We read or hear their parts read. And so during this reading of the Passion, it's very easy for us to maybe identify with the apostles as we see them fail our Lord, particularly Peter. We can realize the ways that we fail Christ and our own fallen humanity. We can also sort of identify with the crowd that calls for our Lord's death and the ways that we have turned on Jesus by committing more to sin rather than committing to him, the ways that we betray him and fight against him. There's one character, though, I think that it would benefit a lot of us to spend more time meditating on and to identify with, someone that we hear about in the reading of the Passion, but we're very hesitant to identify with. And that is the figure of Pilate. Whether we like to admit it or not, many of us are like Pilate. There are a lot of Pilates in the church today. What do I mean by that? Pilate was not someone who was against Jesus. He didn't see Jesus as guilty. He saw him as a good man, not guilty of a capital crime. But Pilate couldn't make a decision. Pilate couldn't stand and say, I am siding with the Lord. But in his unwillingness to make a decision, by standing in the middle, he ultimately gave way to the crowd who wanted Jesus dead. Instead of standing his own ground, he ended up turning Christ over to suffering and death. And the reality is, so many of us in the church today are like that. We're like Pilate. We can't make a decision, and as a result, we turn Christ over to death. We see this in a number of different ways. I see it in a number of different ways. And people who don't hate Jesus, but want to live a life from the flesh, want to continue fornicating, want to continue getting drunk, want to continue doing drugs, but claiming they love Jesus, instead of saying, no, I'm going to put away these sinful things, the sins of the flesh, and I'm going to live a life in the Spirit and a life for Christ. I'm going to take a stand. But instead, they're like Pilate. They stand in the middle, and they think they can have it both ways. It doesn't work that way. Also, when it comes to testifying to their belief in Jesus, very easy on a college campus to see people attacking the Lord, tearing down the faith. And we don't hate Jesus. We love the Lord. But we're unwilling to take a stand for Christ, to say, no, you're wrong. Or no, I'm not going to allow those types of bigoted comments. I'm going to stand up for what I believe. I'm going to stand up for Jesus and defend. But instead, we're like Pilate. We can't do it. We stand in the middle, and ultimately, we turn Jesus over to the enemy. And third and finally, when it comes, we don't hate Jesus, and we know we're supposed to be coming to Mass every Sunday in order to receive the Eucharist and celebrate the resurrection. We don't hate the Lord, but we're like Pilate, and we don't do it. Well, it's inconvenient this weekend. I got busy. It's no big deal. We don't really realize how serious of a business it is. And so we allow those sins to fester on our soul. We're like Pilate, not taking a stand for the Lord and coming to worship him and coming to receive the Eucharist. And as a result, we turn him over to the evil. We turn ourselves over to. What's the message today? If we identify with this, indeed, a number of different characters we can identify with, we in our world are so much like Pilate. Let's quit being like Pilate.